As I stood in my quaint little home, the smell of dust mingling with fading memories, I felt a bittersweet ache in my heart. At 80 years old, I never imagined I would be packing up my life into cardboard boxes, but here I was, surrounded by trinkets and photographs that told the story of my life. Each object had its own tale. The ceramic bird my late husband had bought me on our anniversary, the faded quilt my mother had sewn, and the countless books that had been my escape over the years. I picked up a small frame that held a picture of us on a sunlit beach, his arm draped over my shoulder, both of us laughing. Where did the time go? I murmured to myself, placing the frame gently back in the box. The memories were both a comfort and a weight, reminding me of the life I had built and the love I had lost. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself as I heard the sound of my phone vibrating on the table. It was my son, Mark. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen. I cherished our conversations, but lately, they had been laced with concern. Finally, I picked it up and answered, "Hello? Mom, I've been thinking." His voice boomed through the receiver, full of enthusiasm. "You should move in with us. We can help you, and it'll be great to have you around." "Mark, I started, but he cut me off, his excitement pouring through the phone. "Just think about it. It would be so nice for the kids to see you more often. And you won't be alone anymore," he insisted, his voice warm but insistent. I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me. "But I have my life here, Mark. My friends, my routine." "Mom, it's not the same anymore. You know it's getting harder for you to manage everything. This way, you'll have support," he urged, and I could hear the genuine care in his tone. I paused, staring out the window at the familiar street where I had spent so many years. "I don't want to be a burden," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You could never be a burden. We want you near us," he replied, and I could hear the sincerity in his words. Loneliness gnawed at me, and I found myself nodding, even though he couldn't see me. "Okay, I'll think about it," I said, my heart racing with the weight of the decision. As the days passed, the thought of moving in with Mark and his family settled in my mind, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. I was tired of the silence that filled my home, the echoes of laughter long gone. The idea of family closeness sparked a flicker of hope, chasing away some of the loneliness. I ultimately made the decision to move, believing it would bring me the companionship I craved. Moving day arrived with a flurry of activity, and I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. Boxes lined the living room, and my daughter, Lisa, was there to help. "Mom, let's get this stuff packed up," she chirped, her energy palpable. "Do we really need this many boxes?" I asked, glancing at the mountain of my belongings. "Absolutely. You have so much stuff, and I want you to feel at home," Lisa replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. As we loaded the car, I took one last glance at my home, the walls that had witnessed my joys and sorrows. I felt a pang of sadness and nostalgia. "Goodbye, old friend," I whispered, my heart heavy but hopeful. The drive to the city was a blur of unfamiliar sights and sounds. The bustling streets overwhelmed me, a stark contrast to the quiet charm of my small town. When we finally arrived at Mark's home, I was greeted with a flurry of hugs from my grandchildren. Their laughter filled the air, but beneath it all, I felt the weight of change pressing down on me. "Welcome home, Grandma," one of them exclaimed, pulling me into a warm embrace. "Thank you, sweetheart," I replied, though I couldn't shake the feeling that home was still a distant memory. As I stepped inside, the noise of the city seeped into my bones, and I wondered if I had made the right choice. The walls closed in around me, and I realized that this new chapter was just beginning. As I settled into Mark and Lisa's home, the city buzzed around me, a cacophony of sounds that felt foreign and overwhelming. Each morning, I woke to the sound of traffic, the honking horns blaring like a constant reminder that I was now part of a world that moved too fast for my liking. I would sit at the kitchen table, sipping my tea, watching the clock tick away the hours. Mark had already left for work by the time I woke up, and Lisa was always busy with the children. Her focus divided between their needs and the demands of her own hectic life. "Mom, can you help me with this?" Lisa would call from the other room, her voice laced with urgency. I'd put my cup down, rush to assist, only to find that my contributions were often minor. A button sewn here, a snack prepared there. I longed for more meaningful engagement, but the conversation seemed to revolve around Lisa's children or Mark's job. At dinner, I tried to insert myself into the discussions. "So, how was your day, Mark?" I asked one evening, eager to connect. "Oh, just the usual meetings," he replied absent-mindedly, focused more on his plate than on me. Lisa chimed in. "Mom, you wouldn't believe how many projects Mark has right now. He's really been working hard." "Sounds intense," I said, but the conversation drifted back to the children's school activities. "They had a science project today," Lisa continued, her eyes sparkling with maternal pride. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of my own silence. It was as if I was invisible, a shadow at the dinner table. I wanted to share stories of my past, anecdotes from my life that shaped who I was. But how could I compete with the vibrant lives of my grandchildren? They were the center of attention, and I felt like an outsider in my own family. One night, I overheard Mark and Lisa talking in the living room. I had retreated to my room early, seeking solace in the quiet. Their voices drifted to the hallway, muffled but clear enough for me to catch snippets of their conversation. "Do you think she's okay?" Mark asked, his tone filled with concern. "I don't know, Mark. She seems lost," Lisa replied. "I just worry about her independence. I mean, she's living with us now. What if she falls or needs help?" I could feel a sharp pang in my chest. Independence? They saw me as someone who needed help, someone who could no longer stand on her own. "I'm fine," I muttered under my breath. But the truth was, I felt anything but fine. I felt like a burden, a weight they carried rather than a mother they cherished. As the days turned into weeks, I noticed the subtle shifts in our family dynamics. I tried to assert myself, to take on small tasks around the house, but every time I did, it was met with gentle but firm resistance. "Mom, let us handle that," Mark would say, as if my attempts to help were an affront to his sense of duty. "You should just relax." Relax. The word hung heavy in the air. What did that even mean? Sitting idle in a house that felt increasingly foreign to me, I thought about my little garden back home, the flowers I had tended to, the sense of accomplishment I felt when they bloomed. Here, in this bustling city, I felt like a wilting plant, struggling to adapt to the new environment. One evening, as I watched Lisa and the children play a board game, I felt a wave of loneliness wash over me. They were laughing, their voices filled with joy, but I was on the periphery, a spectator in my own life. "Mom, come join us," Lisa called out, her voice bright and inviting. I forced a smile. "Maybe later, sweetheart," I replied, my heart heavy. I wanted to be part of their world, but each time I tried, it felt like I was met with walls instead of open arms. As I lay in bed that night, the city lights flickering outside my window, I realized that I needed to find a way to reclaim my voice, to remind myself that I was still here, still me. But how could I do that when I felt so lost in their lives? As the weeks slipped by, I found myself in a delicate dance of independence and dependence, each step fraught with the disapproval of my children. I had resolved to reclaim some semblance of my autonomy, starting with something as simple as cooking. The scent of sautéed onions filled the kitchen, a familiar aroma that brought me comfort. I was preparing a hearty stew, the kind that had warmed my home for decades. "Mom, what are you doing?" Mark's voice broke through my concentration, and I turned to see him standing in the doorway, brow furrowed with concern. "I'm making dinner, dear. Would you like to help?" I offered, hoping to share a moment, to pull him into my world, even if just for a minute. He stepped closer, but instead of stepping in, he crossed his arms, his posture radiating disapproval. You don't have to do this, you know. Lisa and I can take care of everything. You should just relax. Relax, I echoed, a bitter taste rising in my throat. I've been relaxing for weeks. I want to contribute. I want to feel useful. Mom, it's not that. We're just worried about you. What if you forget something or what? I interrupted, my voice rising, my heart pounding in frustration. What if I forget how to live? He looked taken aback, and I felt a rush of guilt wash over me. I didn't mean to snap, but the weight of their constant vigilance was becoming unbearable. I just want to feel normal again. As I stirred the pot, my mind was racing. I could tell Mark was not convinced, but I was determined to make this meal. After all, it wasn't just about the cooking. It was about reclaiming a part of myself that I feared was slipping away. Later that evening at dinner, I tried to engage with Lisa about her children's school projects, but as usual, the conversation revolved around Mark's work and Lisa's busy schedule. They didn't even notice when I fell silent, my contributions drifting away like autumn leaves. Did you hear about the new project at the office? Mark began, a spark igniting in his eyes. It's going to be huge. Sounds interesting. I forced out, my heart heavy. I wanted to be part of their lives, but I felt like a ghost haunting the edges of their conversations. The tipping point came unexpectedly. I had forgotten about a family gathering that Lisa had planned. I had been so caught up in my own thoughts and my attempts to find little moments of peace that the date slipped my mind. When I received the call from Lisa that afternoon, her voice was tight with frustration. Mom, where are you? The family is waiting for you. I'm so sorry, Lisa. I completely forgot. I stammered, panic rising in my chest. Forgot? This is the second time this month. It's like you're not even trying to be part of the family, she snapped, the words cutting deeper than I expected. I am trying. I shot back, feeling the heat rise to my cheeks. But it seems like no one wants me around anyway. What do you mean by that? Lisa's voice softened, but the tension lingered. I mean, I haven't felt like a part of anything since I got here. You and Mark are always so busy. I'm just trying to find my place. I admitted, my voice shaking. You're not a burden, Mom, but you have to meet us halfway. We can't keep dragging you along, she replied, her voice now laced with concern. I hung up feeling small, retreating to my room, where the silence enveloped me like a heavy blanket. I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of resentment and loss of autonomy pressing down on me. I felt trapped in a life that was supposed to be filled with family warmth and support. Yet here I was, feeling more isolated than ever. As I gazed out the window at the city lights twinkling in the distance, an idea swirled in my mind like a whirlwind. What if I moved back to my little town, a place where I had roots, where I had lived freely for so many years? I could reclaim my sense of self, my independence. My heart raced at the thought, a flicker of hope igniting within me. Perhaps the answer lay not in proximity to my children, but in the distance that would allow me to breathe and exist on my own terms. The sun hung low in the sky, painting the park in hues of orange and gold as I settled onto a weathered bench, the cool breeze kissing my cheeks. The laughter of children echoed in the distance, mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming flowers. It felt liberating to be away from the confines of Mark's house, even if just for a moment. I had come here seeking solace, but instead, I found a small group of seniors gathered around a picnic table, sharing stories and laughter. Mind if we join you? I asked, my voice wavering slightly as I approached them. Not at all. Come on over. An elderly woman with silver hair and a warm smile beckoned me. Her name was Doris, and she quickly introduced me to the others. Henry, a sprightly man with twinkling eyes and grace, who was knitting a scarf that she claimed was for her great-granddaughter. What brings you here? Henry asked, his voice deep and inviting. I'm just trying to escape the hustle and bustle, I replied, my heart racing as I opened up to strangers. I recently moved in with my son and his family. It's different. Different how? Doris prodded gently, sensing my hesitation. I sighed, feeling the weight of my situation pressing down on me. I feel like a guest in my own life, I admitted, like I'm more of a burden than a blessing. Oh, honey, we've all been there, Grace chimed in, her needles clicking as she worked. It's hard to find your place when everything changes. As the afternoon wore on, we shared our stories, our triumphs, our losses, and our struggles with aging. I felt a warmth spreading through me, a sense of belonging I hadn't experienced in weeks. We laughed together, and for the first time in a while, I felt lighter, as if the chains of suffocation were loosening just a bit. Inspired by this newfound connection, I decided to invite my friends over for a gathering at Mark's house. Perhaps it would help bridge the gap between the world I had known and the one I was thrust into. That evening, I spent hours preparing, meticulously arranging the house and setting the table. I hoped this would be the moment my family could see my need for connection beyond their immediate circle. "Mom, what's all this?" Mark asked as he walked in, surprised by the bustling atmosphere. "I thought it would be nice to have some friends over," I said, trying to sound upbeat. "You know, a little gathering." He frowned, glancing at the preparations. "Are you sure that's a good idea? What if it gets too loud or chaotic?" "Mark, I want to share a piece of my life with you," I insisted, a hint of exasperation creeping into my voice. "These people understand me in ways you might not." The evening unfolded with laughter and stories, my friends blending seamlessly with my family. But as the night wore on, I noticed a tension brewing. It began with an innocent discussion about aging, but soon escalated between Lisa and one of my friends, Doris. "Doris, I just don't understand how you can be okay with being so dependent on others," Lisa said, her voice rising slightly. "Don't you want to maintain your independence?" Doris, taken aback, replied, "It's not about dependence. It's about companionship. We're not alone in this, dear." Lisa crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "But you can't just rely on others forever. You need to take charge of your life." I felt the air thicken with discomfort, and my heart raced as I watched the argument unfold. It felt like a generational divide had emerged, echoing the very concerns I had been grappling with. I could see the frustration in Doris's eyes, and it mirrored my own. "Lisa, please," I interjected, my voice shaking slightly. "We're all just trying to find our way. Everyone ages differently." But it was too late. The rift had formed, and I felt caught in the middle, overwhelmed by the realization that my attempt to connect had only exacerbated the tensions I was trying to alleviate. I glanced around the room, seeing the discomfort on the faces of my friends and family, and I felt an all-too-familiar weight settle back onto my shoulders. As the evening drew to a close, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had unintentionally created a divide rather than bridged one. I longed for understanding, but instead, I felt more isolated than ever, the laughter of the earlier hours replaced by an awkward silence. I retreated to my room, overwhelmed by the chaos of emotions swirling within me. As I sat alone in my room after the gathering, the silence felt heavier than usual. The laughter and chatter that filled the house just hours before seemed to echo in my mind. But now, all I felt was an overwhelming sense of isolation. I stared at the walls, decorated with photos of my children at various stages of their lives, moments frozen in time that now felt like distant memories. I had hoped that inviting my new friends over would bridge the gap between my old life and this new chapter, but instead, I had inadvertently widened the chasm. Why did I think this would work? I muttered to myself, feeling a pang of regret. The argument between Lisa and one of my friends left a bitter taste in my mouth. It had exposed a very real generational divide that lay between us, a divide I had underestimated. I wanted to share my world with them, but it seemed I had only succeeded in creating friction. The next day, I decided to call Mark. My heart raced as I dialed his number, the anticipation of his voice both comforting and anxiety-inducing. When he answered, I could hear the bustle of his office in the background, a reminder of the busy life he led. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" he asked, his tone bright but distant. "I'm okay, Mark. Can we talk for a minute?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sure, what's up?" His casual tone made me feel even more vulnerable. Taking a deep breath, I let the words spill out. "I've been feeling suffocated, I guess. Since I moved here, it feels like I'm losing myself, and I don't know how to express that without hurting you or Lisa." There was a brief pause before he replied, "Mom, we just want what's best for you. You're not a burden. We worry about you being alone. It's a big city, and I know that, Mark." I interjected, my voice rising a notch. "But this isn't about being alone or safe. I feel like I'm just existing in your life, not living my own. When I try to engage, I'm often met with disapproval. I just want to be part of the conversation, not a spectator." "But we're doing this because we care," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "We're just trying to help you adjust. You don't need to do everything by yourself." "That's exactly it, Mark. I want to. I need to." I felt tears stinging my eyes, but I blinked them away. I want to be able to cook my meals, make my choices. I want to feel like I have a say in my own life. Mark sighed heavily on the other end. "Mom, I'm not trying to dismiss your feelings, but you have to understand, it's hard for us too. We're trying to balance our lives while ensuring you're comfortable." I could sense the tension in his voice, the weight of responsibility he felt. It was a lot for both of us to carry. I appreciate that, but I need some space to breathe. I want to spend more time with my friends, and maybe that would help both of us. "Okay, I hear you," he said slowly, "but I hope you understand where we're coming from." As the conversation ended, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I had expressed my feelings, yet I knew it wouldn't be simple. The distance I craved was not just physical. It was emotional, and that was the hardest part. Over the next few days, I withdrew from family activities. I spent more time at the park, savoring the company of my friends who understood the complexities of aging and independence. Their laughter and stories rejuvenated me, filling the void that had opened up within me. But as I distanced myself, I could feel the tension building at home. Mark and Lisa seemed more on edge, their concern morphing into something that felt almost accusatory. I overheard them whispering one evening in the kitchen, their voices low and tense. "She's just pushing us away. What do we do if she doesn't want to be part of the family anymore?" Lisa's voice trembled with worry. Mark's voice was firm yet soft. "We have to give her space, but we can't let her feel abandoned. She needs to know we're still here for her." Their words echoed in my mind, and I felt a pang of guilt mixed with a sense of empowerment. I was striving for my own identity, yet I never wanted to sever the bonds that tied me to them. It was a delicate dance, one I was still learning to navigate, and I hoped we could find a rhythm that worked for all of us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow in my small room, I found myself sifting through a box of old photographs that had been tucked away for years. Each picture was a portal to a moment long gone, and as I flipped through them, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. There was my late husband, Arthur, with his trademark grin, holding our firstborn, Mark, in his arms. I paused, a soft smile breaking through my bittersweet reverie. And then, nestled between a black and white photo of our wedding day and a snapshot of our family camping trip, I discovered an envelope. My heart raced as I recognized Arthur's handwriting on the front. With trembling hands, I opened it, revealing a series of letters written for me. The first one began, "My dearest Helena." I read each letter, losing myself in his words. He spoke of his love for me, his dreams for our life together, and most importantly, his wishes for my future. "If anything ever happens to me," he wrote, "I want you to live freely. Pursue your passions, make new friends, and don't ever feel like a burden. You deserve to be happy, my love." Tears brimmed in my eyes as I absorbed his sentiments. I had spent so much time feeling like a weight on my children's shoulders, trapped in a cage of my own making. But Arthur's words ignited a spark within me. I felt a renewed sense of empowerment and clarity. I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to thrive. Later that evening, as the aroma of dinner wafted through the air, I gathered my courage and approached Mark and Lisa, who were engrossed in a conversation about their day. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fluttering in my chest. Mark looked up, puzzled but attentive, while Lisa paused, her brows knitting together in concern. "Of course, Mom. Is everything all right?" "No, everything is not all right," I replied, my heart racing. "I need to share something important. I've been feeling overwhelmed. I understand that you both want to care for me, but I need my independence. I need to feel like I'm living my life, not just existing in yours." Lisa blinked, clearly taken aback. "But we're just trying to help you, Mom. We worry about you being alone." "I know that," I said, my voice softening. "But what I need is to pursue my own passions. I want to reconnect with that vibrant part of me that feels stifled." Arthur wanted that for me too. Mark exchanged a glance with Lisa before turning back to me. "I didn't realize. I just thought I was doing what was best for you," he admitted, his voice tinged with guilt. "I felt so overwhelmed by the responsibility of caring for you, and I guess I didn't see how it might be affecting you." "Overwhelmed," I echoed, surprised. "You felt overwhelmed?" "I thought I was just a burden." "No, Mom," he said quickly, shaking his head. "That wasn't my intention. I've been trying to juggle work and family while making sure you're okay. But I see now how that could come off as suffocating. I'm sorry." Lisa stepped closer, her expression softening. "We want you to be happy, Mom. We just didn't know how to support you without feeling like we were losing you." I took a deep breath, feeling the tension in the room begin to dissipate. "Maybe we can find a middle ground," I suggested. "Let's talk about how we can create boundaries that respect my need for independence while still enjoying our family time together." Mark nodded, a sense of relief washing over his features. "I'd like that. We can make this work." As we talked, I felt the warmth of understanding envelop us, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I could embrace my autonomy while still being a part of my family's life. We laughed, shared ideas, and slowly began to forge a new path together, a path that honored my independence while weaving my family closer together. In that moment, I realized that true freedom and peace in my twilight years lay not just in distance, but in the delicate balance of love, respect, and understanding.